What's going on, Mountaineer fans? Welcome to the Breakdown, where we take a look at App State's upcoming opponent each and every week of the season.
Watch me. Watch me.
Up this week, we've got the Louisiana Raging Cajuns down in Lafayette on Tuesday night. They come into this as the Sun Belt home opener with a 4-1 overall record, 2-0 in Sun Belt play. Before the season, they were favored to win the Western Division. You can see why. Overall, they have a pretty easy conference slate. They avoid Coastal Carolina, and the rest of the West looks pretty down this year. So they've had, even in all those games that they've previously played, they've had only really one comfortable win. And all their other games have been within one score. So let's take a look at what they bring to this matchup.
Levi Lewis was selected as the best scrambler in the conference. Can certainly see why in some of these clips. He's a lefty QB, has a pretty good arm on him. He's thrown for 7 touchdowns and only 1 interception so far this year. He will pull it down and run instead of forcing a throw into coverage. I think App will be able to force him to run quite a bit. I think the question will be, how well can we contain him? And you can see here that he does get the ball on some design quarterback runs. A lot of his runs tend to not look like designs too much. It looks like he'll look for the pass first and run if he's really got to. He does like to be the pocket passer. He has a pretty good arm in order to get it downfield, but he's definitely got the speed to be a scrambler as well. As far as the running backs go, the Cajuns are similar to App as they don't really have one go-to back. Instead, they rely on a 3-headed approach. As you can see, these stats were from earlier in the season, but you use all 3 guys. And as you can see here, Monty Bailey, number 9, very quick and shifty. Definitely, all 3 really have a burst of speed, and you will see some direct snaps as well. I think all 3 of them have taken direct snaps at some point this season from what I've seen. So it won't be surprising, and typically it's done near the goal line as well. They do catch out of the backfield. I don't think it happens very often. Typically they've got plenty of wide receivers that can take care of that role, but certainly will hand it off to all 3 quite often. Here, see a little bit of Chris Smith here, who was thought to kind of be the number 1 option. Interestingly enough, Chris Smith leads the team in carries, Johnson leads the team in touchdowns, and Bailey actually leads the team in yards. So you can really tell that they spread it out. It's not just one guy consistently. They will rotate these guys all night long and keep chugging along trying to run that ball. And this run here by Johnson. I honestly, from what I've seen, I'd say Johnson may be their best overall back, but none of them are bad. They're all very talented guys. Johnson's 4 touchdowns all actually came here against Ohio previously. Freshman wideout Dante Fleming leads the Cajun in receiving yards, but actually only has 1 touchdown on the season so far. Michael Jefferson doesn't see a lot of targets, but he is a deep play threat. He averages over 24 yards per catch. This is a deep ball here to him. There's been a couple times where if he could have been hit, he would have had a whole lot more yards and maybe even 1 or 2 more touchdowns. So it's not for lack of effort trying to get him the ball. Here may be their best wide receiver overall, though. It's TCU transfer John Stevens Jr. He's actually only got 99 yards on the year, but he does lead the team with 3 touchdown catches. Certainly a nice red zone threat once they get down there close. And not a big play threat overall, but we could see tight end Johnny Lumpkin used. He's 6'6", 260 pounds, and he'd be a hell of a target to bring down near the end zone. Special teams is solid, with starting kicker Almendarez missing only 1 field goal and having a long of 48 yards for the season. Also, their kick coverages are really good. We'll see some hits here after they're covering the kicks. Really impressive how fast they can get downfield, even against Texas. Really, maybe Texas had one that you can consider a really good return. Otherwise, they're stifled just about everybody they've played as far as kick coverage goes throughout the season, which is pretty good. Defensively, they do well against teams that run between the tackles a lot. They are not so great when you can get it on the outside and really get that edge set. However, their secondary is lacking. I mean, they can certainly make plays. They've had some interceptions this year. Most of those have really been kind of poor throws more than necessarily great plays by the secondary. I'm not saying they're not talented, but they do struggle quite often with bringing the ball carrier down. Got a couple plays that they just flat out should make, and this one against Texas here is a prime example, and this is not the only play that was like that.
So overall, the Cajuns have given up a total of 1,180 yards and 7 touchdowns through the air. I'd expect our usual suspects of Hennigan, Sutton, obviously Williams and Virgil coming into play there, even some of the younger guys that we saw a little bit last week with Georgia State, all to have a pretty good game offensively for us. Running backs should have a good game as well. The Cajuns have allowed 753 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground, as well as a 100-yard rusher in 3 out of their 5 games. I think the biggest question as far as running backs go is who's healthy, how healthy are they coming into the game? We love to see Anderson Castle get carries as a fan base. You always like to see those second and third and fourth stringers get some carries, but there is a drop off after Noel and Peoples. The one good possible surprise that we have coming up is if we get Chop back, otherwise known as Daytrick Harrington for those of you who don't know his nickname Chop. I'd say bottom line is the strength of schedule for Louisiana hasn't been there yet, and it hasn't been the greatest for App either. But I would say that App has had the tougher schedule going forward. From the very beginning of the season, an in-state rival with East Carolina, all that game meant, even though East Carolina seems to still be a little down, it still was a big hyped up game, and App came and it showed up for that. I don't think Louisiana has kind of that game yet. They had the marquee matchup against Texas, and actually they looked pretty well in it until about halftime, even a little bit into the third quarter, maybe even. But that one got away from them quickly once it did. So we'll see what this matchup brings. But overall, I just think that App's got the better results against a little bit better opponents coming in. And I think they're going to prove to be too much. I'm going to go with Louisiana 17 and App doubling them up with 34 points. For those of you going down to Lafayette, I may see you in the crowd Tuesday night. Go Apps.